moderates, I hate that term. I mean, basically, if there's a good term for it, it's the corporate wing of the party.
The mainstream narrative appears to be shifting at least a little bit and finally showcasing the reality around this budget bill fight and who these moderate Democrats really are. In reality, corporate Democrats. Now, this is, I have two examples here, two different clips, and I'll also get to later on a horrible article showing you the other side of a fluff piece of Kyrsten Sinema that just released today in the Daily Beast. It is atrocious to the point that I thought it may be satire. It is so bad. But before I get there, this shows you that this is not just the, Mehdi Hassan or Chris Hayes on MSNBC, who have generally been fairly good in discussing this budget bill fight, but these are more of the mainstream shows on CNN and MSNBC that are finally giving you the reality of what is going on around this budget bill. So first up here, this was cut out by a Case Study QB, so credit to him. But my first, before even clicking the clip, just recognize here that you have two people on who, I know Jason Johnson has his history, his issues with horrible positions during the Democratic primary, but since then has largely been more supportive of the progressive agenda, at least rhetorically. But here you have two guests that are pro the progressive side. Something you almost never see on these networks when they have guests on. So let me play for this clip for you, and it really gives you an indication in how the narrative is changing.
Jason, tell me what you want, what you really, really want.
Well, I think people in D.C. are surprised that Biden gets along better with his friends on the progressive side. And the fact that he seems to have thrown in with the progressives in the House who said, look, we're not voting for this infrastructure bill, which you moderates like, unless both these things are linked together. It's actually good strategy. And it's because Joe Biden, just like Bernie Sanders and the rest of these long-term senators and negotiators, understand you can't trust Kyrsten Sinema. You can't trust Joe Manchin. And if they get what they want, if they get the road infrastructure bill done now, there is no guarantee that they won't waffle and prevaricate and do everything else they can to not vote for the larger soft infrastructure bill. So I actually think Joe Biden's making a very smart decision right now. This is the future of the party, and it is his entire agenda. There's no reason to split it up this early.
Katrina?
The progressives are the pragmatists, and they're supporting Biden's agenda. The conservative Dems, the conservative Democrats, are obstructing. And in fact, this isn't really the progressive agenda. They wanted a bolder Green New Deal and Medicare for all. Right. But polls, it's very popular, Ari. And I think that is often misunderstood. I mean, I think you have a fight here between the progressives, pragmatists. I mean, Pramila Jayapal is a whip-smart progressive, maybe the next speaker. And I think she understands that you have to move away, refocus from that top line, which she was doing on the show the other day, and really talk about what's in this bill. It's going to help Democrats win in 2022 if you can improve the concrete conditions of people's lives. And I think that's what President Biden is flying to Michigan tomorrow to talk about. And I think that's critical at this stage. Get off that number. Stop with tax and spend. This is about investing in a country that needs investment urgently, desperately. And I think the progressives have a balance of power here.
All right, so I still have a second clip coming up. The second one's going to be CNN, and I'll get to the Kyrsten Sinema insane article in a minute here as well. But this is great. You have here on two more mainstream progressives, but still here. They're on the show fighting on the side of the progressive wing of the party on Ari Melber's show, not known as the most progressive guy in network television or in cable news, but here you have these two guests fighting on the same side as the progressives, which is almost unheard of in cable news. Now, you could say, yes, it isn't really just the progressive side, as we are talking about the entire Democratic Party in Congress versus two senators, but still, they are arguing to pass this budget bill, which Sinema and Manchin are against, and doing so in a way that frames the discussion properly by calling them corporate Democrats, by calling them conservatives, and not simply, moderates, which is a ridiculous term. Now, before I get to the next clip, I want to show you briefly here polling on just how popular the Build Back Better plan, the budget bill, is. Now, I will link to this below the video so you can share this around yourself as well. But I'll quickly go over the different provisions here and the net favorability of all of them. So long-term care investments, plus 67, modernizing K-12 school buildings, plus 55, electricity grid modernization, plus 58, Medicare drug price negotiation plus 58, lower Medicare age plus 27, universal pre-K plus 29, tuition-free community college plus 25, creating a civilian climate corps plus 28, pathway to citizenship plus 22, and ending child tax benefits plus 9. All of this has either a majority or plurality of support from the American people. It is clear what side people are on. Yet you still have, as I'll show you later in this ridiculous article, you still have articles out being published that are claiming that Kyrsten Sinema is being very brave in opposing this agenda that the vast majority of Americans want. But first, let's go to the CNN clip now. So this is Don Lemon's show. Again, someone that doesn't normally... I mean, if anyone's a centrist, Don Lemon is fairly solid in that position. But here you have Paul Krugman on the show discussing that, again, these are not moderates, and properly framing this discussion.
Now, you've recently wrote, I've been wanting to speak to you about this column, how the progressive wing is advancing popular policies while the conservative wing is willing to risk blowing up the president's agenda. And you describe it as Biden versus a Rip Van Winkle caucus. You say Democratic moderates need to wake up. Talk to me about that, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a group, moderates, I hate that term. I mean, basically, if there's a good term for it, it's the corporate wing of the party, the ones who are listening to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce instead of the public. But they're acting as if it's still the 1990s, when you could make deals with Republicans, when we were just not at all in this kind of situation. And they're also acting as if the kinds of things that people believed in the 1990s, low taxes lead to higher growth, government is bad, the era of big government is over, were still relevant. And at this point, what the progressives are asking for, even the full 3.5 trillion, is not a huge thing. It's 1.2% of GDP over the next decade. It's a medium-sized initiative of stuff that has lots of good economic analysis saying that it's actually going to be highly productive. So saying that we need to scale this back, that we need to kind of think that it's 1993 again or 1999 again, that's a really, where have these people been for the past 20 years?
So credit again to Case Study QB for picking that clip out. Now, this is, again, another example of a guest on the show properly framing this discussion. Forever, the discussion has always been framed as these conservative, pro-corporate Democrats are moderates. They're just doing the moderate thing. They're being pragmatic. And the progressives are extreme radicals on the fringe. No one supports them. But now you're having the discussions getting reframed. The moderates being corporatists, being conservatives, and in reality, the progressives are the ones that are being pragmatic here. So this is how you properly frame these discussions, and it's encouraging to see this being done. Now, you may wonder, why? Why is this happening now? I think a big part of the reason is that Joe Biden has made it clear that he wants to pass the Build Back Better Act, even if it's going to be cut down. He wants to pass it. He wants these investments to be made. And he has centered Sinema and Manchin as the obstacle to that progress. So here is a quick clip that CNN published, just 9 seconds long, of Biden discussing the issue.
We could bring the moderates and progressives together very easy if we had 2 more votes. Yeah. 2.
There you go. Joe Biden pinpointing 2 people as the problem. And I think that is giving almost a green light to these networks that are, at least certain hosts on these networks that have been a little more conservative in their approach, has now allowed them to then truly criticize Sinema and Manchin for what they really are, and that is these corporatists. Now, let me show you the opposite end. This is, I'm going to have to laugh because it is so crazy that if I yelled about this, there's no point. So let me just show you. First, the tweet. Daily Beast here on Liz Cheney and Kyrsten Sinema. I'm going to focus on Sinema here. I don't care about Liz Cheney. Matt Lewis argues, quote, "There's a very real case that these two are not only America's bravest politicians, but our best ones, trying to forge a path through brutal terrain toward a less polarized future." Very brave. It gets it gets worse. So I'm just going to read a paragraph here to show you how insane this article is. To try and understand Sinema's supposed betrayal, some on the left are speculating that she's sold out to political donors. But this ignores the fact that she could just as easily rake in progressive money like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren have done. A more plausible, if less sexy, theory is that she is making her political choices first, then accepting money from those willing to finance those choices. Ah, yes, of course. That's what the issue. She's not sold out. She has already taken these positions, and now finding what large corporations that will promise me a job later support these positions. Sinema is someone that was a member of the Green Party. There are I covered this. There are tweets that are out from years ago showing Sinema in support of higher taxes on corporations and the wealthy, supporting expansion of healthcare. Yet now she has taken the complete opposite position. How can you possibly compare Goldman Sachs to Jack that works at the Amazon warehouse? Bernie Sanders gets his money from individual donors. Individual donors. What cushy job is Bernie being promised when he retires at 90? Kyrsten Sinema clearly has a career goal in mind here. That is why she's doing this. There is a lot of speculation right now that she does not want to be a senator any longer. That she is doing this purposely to sell out and get a cushy job after she leaves Congress. That is very likely what is going to happen here. But comparing the two, progressive money from individual donors to massive corporations that control almost all of Congress, how stupid do you have to be? This is why I read this thinking, is this satire? Is Matt Lewis this dumb? It's just incredible. Let me just read one more paragraph here. He says, another theory is that she's crazy like a fox. Arizona's status as a purple state and the fact that Sinema is basically channeling John McCain's maverick streak, which is not true at all. John McCain largely voted with Republicans. Sinema is largely being against Democrats and with conservatives. But going on here, he says, support the argument that she's actually being politically sagacious, but that doesn't mean she isn't also taking a risk by going against her own tribe. Indeed, if standing up to your own party, as opposed to pandering to the base, is the key to winning elections in the 21st century, it's a secret that almost no one else in the modern political world has discovered. Maybe this is satire. I don't. How? He's thinking out loud here. The writer is thinking out loud. Maybe Sinema has discovered the real way to win is to completely oppose your base and not have any of their support and think that Republicans are going to vote for a Democrat over an actual Republican. This guy won't lose his job. He will be able to continue. He'll continue being having his pieces published in places like the Daily Beast, despite the fact that this man knows absolutely nothing about politics, absolutely nothing about what motivates people like Kyrsten Sinema. It is embarrassing. But if it's satire, it is brilliant. But I don't think it's satire based on Matt Lewis and his record on these various issues. And just to buttress that point here, Democratic voters drive decline in Sinema's popularity in Arizona. So Sinema is losing a lot of support. Now, Manchin is a bit of a different beast. West Virginia is a different beast entirely. West Virginia is a conservative state that has a Democratic senator. Arizona, meanwhile, is becoming a lot more blue. You have Mark Kelly, the other senator there, that is in support of the budget bill. His numbers are much higher. He has much higher approvals over Kyrsten Sinema, despite the fact that he is in support of the budget bill, showing you that Arizona is actually turning blue. Meanwhile, Sinema is trying to appeal to Republican voters. For what reason? And again, this is why it goes back to, I don't think she cares about re-election. I don't think she cares about staying a senator. I think it's all about her getting a cushy job once she leaves the Senate. Because Republican voters are not going to vote for a Democrat over a Republican. West Virginia is a unique case in that sense, and it's very likely Manchin won't be a senator much longer, at least a Democratic senator much longer in West Virginia. But when it comes to Arizona, there's no reason at all to do this if you want to win re-election. And just there's another fluff piece. I'm not going to go too deeply into this one, but from Axios from October 1st, cracking the Sinema code. Hans Nichols here, just an absurd piece, calling her the wine drinking triathlete. Like, just a pure fluff piece. It is embarrassing what Axios put out here, but it's also super embarrassing what Daily Beast allowed to run. Just a completely ridiculous piece. But hey, let's go back to the positive aspect of this video. You have here MSNBC and CNN putting out some actual factual analysis when it comes to their view on the budget bill.